Thomas's Train is the 5th episode of the first series of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. It's based on the story of the same name from the Railway series book Thomas the Tank Engine. Since they already told the first story from the book in the first episode of the series, it only made sense that they'd carry it on after they finished with the 3 Railway Engine saga. And it's the second big story arc in the first series as we get to see Thomas's journey. Thomas often grumbled about having to collect coaches for the other engines, as he wants to pull passenger trains as well. The other engines now are telling him that he's too impatient that he would leave something behind. But Thomas is determined to prove them wrong. One night, Thomas and Henry are alone in the shed when Henry is ill. The men try their hardest to make him better, but to no avail, leaving Thomas to feel sorry for him. The next morning, when Henry is due to take a first train and Thomas is needed to get the coaches ready, he starts to hope that he will be allowed to pull the train if Henry is not able to. Thomas brings the coaches to the platform and is eager to turn around in front. His driver does not let him, telling him to be patient. Soon all the passengers are aboard the coaches and they're ready to leave, but there's still no sign of Henry, much to Thomas's excitement. The Fat Control arrives to see what is going on and is told about Henry. He orders to find another engine, and as Thomas is the only one available, he allows the tank engine to take the train. Thomas, full of joy, quickly moves to the front of the coaches despite his driver again warning him not to be impatient.
What happened then, no one knows. Perhaps they forgot to couple Thomas to the train, or perhaps the driver pulled the lever by mistake.
Whatever happened, Thomas ends up leaving the station without the train and the passengers are very surprised and angry. The men in the signal box outside the station wave and shout, though Thomas thinks they are cheering. He puffs along the line, thinking pulling coaches is easier than he was told. He keeps seeing people wave at him and assumes that it is because they have never seen him pull a train before. Eventually, Thomas is stopped at a signal set at danger. Thomas is angry at being stopped when he was going so nicely and blows his whistle, alerting the signalman who asks Thomas what he's doing out on this part of the line. Thomas explains that he's pulling a train, but the signalman asks him where his coaches are. The tank engine looks behind and discovers that he has left his train behind. He is very upset at his mistake and nearly cries. Thomas's driver tells him not to be upset and he sadly reverses back to the station. At the station, all the passengers are complaining to the Fat Controller about what happened. But when Thomas returns, they see how sorry he is and allow him to try again. This time, Thomas is properly coupled to the coaches and he really gets his chance to pull the train. Sometime later, the other engines begin to tease Thomas and remind him about his mistake to his annoyance. This was the second story in the TV series to centre around Thomas the Tank Engine, who is of course the main character of the TV series. The events of this episode were retold in The Adventure Begins, and they were pretty faithful to it in that one, aside from Henry still being a coward rather than actually being ill. But that's another kettle of fish. It's really nice to see Thomas's development in the series. When he was first introduced, he was seen as a cheeky tank engine who shunted coaches for the big engines to take on journeys. But in this episode we discover that he wants more out of life, that he's finally fed up with having to shunt coaches for the big engines and wants to take his own trains. And this is the start of his journey to becoming the really useful engine we know him as today. This episode was also the first time we got to hear Thomas the Tank Engine's iconic theme. Though it was only a snippet of it, we did get our first experience with it, and we'd hear the longer extended version of it in later episodes. And it just sums up how cheerful Thomas the Tank Engine can be and how cheeky he is. And we all know how his theme tune would change from season to season. But this was the very first example of it, and I love every second of it. And this is the first episode of this series to have a scary moment in it. And I'm not talking about like those moments that are intended to make you shit your pants and all that stuff. I'm talking about an unintentional scare, being that close-up of Thomas's shocked face when he discovers that he's left the coaches behind. Now I don't exactly know what it is about that scene that would have been scary back then. Maybe it was because it was so close to Thomas's shocked face and it was the first time we'd ever seen that shocked face. Or maybe it was because of the music that played in the background. But either way, it was the very first unintentional scare for the TV series. And it wouldn't be the last one either. So some kids might find this shit your pants scary, but when you look back at it years later, it's fine. Nothing too scary about it. And as I said, they never intended it to be scary, it just somehow happened. But that unintentional scare doesn't come close to ruining Thomas's next big break. This episode was also the first time we get to see Henry fall ill for unknown reasons. And this would be an ongoing theme for the series until a later episode which we'll get to very soon. Thomas's Train is a fun-filled episode where nothing too exciting happens, it's just a little bit of development for Thomas the Tank Engine, showing that there's more to this cheeky engine than meets the eye. And this is another episode that I'd highly recommend putting on if you haven't seen it for a while. But if you're going to watch it, I'd say start from the beginning of the series and then make your way through. That's how it's usually done best. This was Thomas's first big outing in the TV series, and it definitely wouldn't be his last. More big adventures for the young tank engine were yet to come.